Hallo, it's dumplet here. Here's an item on trigonometry. X is a real number such that cosine of 2x minus 1 is equal to 3 times the cosine of x. Find the square of the value of tangent x over 2. This item came from DAM 2022, an examination that dumplet has hosted. The link to the PDF file will be in the description. As usual, pause this video if you'd like to give this item a try. But if you're done, let us dive into the solution. Alright, so very simple. We have a trigonometric equation. So I'll be showing you guys two ways to do this. One is to directly try to find the value of x, because after I find x, I'm just going to substitute into the tangent squared x over 2 and solve for whatever that value is. Alright, so a typical strategy in the trigonometric equation, we try to write everything in terms of one trigonometric function, and maybe just in terms of one angle. So for example, in this case, the cosine 2x, and we typically want to make it maybe everything in terms of cosine x, because we could use the double angle identity. So we want to write everything in terms of one variable or one trigonometric function, because it's going to seem like we're solving just a polynomial equation. So let us try to simplify this one. The cosine of 2x by the double angle identity, that's 2 cosine squared x minus 1, and I'm just going to copy the rest here. Okay, so that's what I mean by writing everything in terms of one trigonometric function. Technically, if I try to, for example, I'm going to let y is equal to cosine x, this equation will become 2y squared. This part becomes minus 2, and then it's going to be equal to 3y. Now I can easily solve for y, because this is now in effect a quadratic equation. So 2y squared minus 3y minus 2 is equal to 0. I could factor this nicely. 2y plus 1 times y minus 2, like this. All right? Now if I were to solve for the roots, obviously I'll get y equals negative 1/2 and 2. All right? Now, what's different to a quadratic equation is that we have to kind of check for the two solutions, because, well, we know that y, it's cosine x, right? So cosine x equals 2 is impossible, because x is a real number, and we know that the range of the cosine function is between negative 1 to 1 inclusive. So this is just the additional case you have to consider whenever you're trying to solve trigonometric equations. So I guess cosine x cannot be 2, so cosine x must be negative 1/2. So after I have cosine x to be negative 1/2, I'll just find a value of x that works. Now obviously there are a lot of values that work, but knowing that the answer is numerical, any value of x should work in the question. So I'm just going to use degrees here. I'll have x to be 120 degrees. That's one solution. The other one is 240 degrees. And obviously there are other solutions, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use x to be 120 degrees. But you guys can try out the other angles. You are going to get the same answer, right? But just not to overcomplicate our work, let's just use x equals 120 degrees. Now tangent x over 2 becomes tangent squared of 120 degrees over 2. Now 120 over 2, that's 60, so tangent squared of 60 degrees. Now we know that tangent 60 is square root of 3, right? So we just get the square of the square root 3, and that's just going to give us 3 as the answer, all right? So lucky for us that we have x here to be special angles, so we can easily get the value of x. Otherwise, we might have to resort to some right triangle stuff. But in our case, we got pretty lucky because x is a special angle. Now, that's for the first method. For the second method, we can use some identities to help us here. Now, take note of the value that we're trying to get. We're trying to get tangent squared of x over 2. Now, we can try to recall the half angle identities. Now, I have the two half angle identities here. I just kind of squared them. So those two are the half angle identities. Again, not everybody might be familiar with this one, but just in the case that you know how to solve these type of questions using identities, it might be better to approach this question this way, because a while ago we have x to be a special angle. At least if you're using identities, you avoid you can answer the question without x needing to be a special angle, because we're just using identities. Right, moving on. So we have the first one and the second one, but we know that tangent is sine divided by cosine. So I'm just going to divide the first one here by the second one. And if I do that, right, so 1 minus cosine x over 2 divided by 1 plus cosine x over 2. Now division, I could just make this multiplication and then just take the reciprocal of this one. So times 2 divided by 1 plus cosine x. Next, we have this one, cosine x to be negative 1/2, so we're still going to use this one. So apart from canceling the 2, we can substitute cosine x to be negative 1/2. So I'll be getting 1 minus negative 1/2 divided by 1 plus negative 1/2. And simplifying this will actually give you 3/2 divided by 1/2. And just like the first method, we are going to get the answer of 3 in this question. So whether you use the first one or the second one, you're still going to get the same answer. But personally, I'm leaning towards the second method just because it has a nice incorporation of the identities. Hopefully you guys learned something new from this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!